Nestled in the heart of Ohio, Chardon was a town untouched by time. Life moved at a slower pace here. Folks knew their neighbors, they shared smiles over picket fences and lent a helping hand without a second thought. The air was clean, the streets were safe, and the laughter of children echoed through the park on warm summer evenings. Chardon was a town of simple pleasures, fishing in the clear waters of the nearby lake, hiking through the whispering woods, sharing a potluck dinner with friends and family on a Friday night. It was a place where people came to escape the hustle and bustle of city life, a place to breathe and just be. But even in this idyllic town, shadows lurked. Beneath the surface of normalcy, a darkness stirred. Unseen forces gathered in the depths of the night, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when the storm hit, it wasn't rain that threatened to wash Chardon away. It was something far more sinister, something that would test the very soul of this peaceful town and push its residents to the brink of survival. Cray was a Chardon institution. His diner, with its checkered floors and red vinyl booths, was the heart of the town. Cray, with his booming laugh and generous spirit, was everyone's friend. Jeb Hill, the town's gruff but kind-hearted fisherman, could often be found at the counter. Sheriff Johnson would often pop in for a late-night coffee and a slice of Cray's pecan pie. Cray's Diner was more than just a place to eat, a beacon of hope in the face of unimaginable darkness. Sheriff Johnson, along with his deputies, Fred Stone and Alice Fine, were the guardians of Chardon's peace. Fred, a young man eager to prove himself, and Alice, a sharp and resourceful officer, were the epitome of small-town law enforcement. They knew every street corner, every resident, every secret whispered behind closed doors.
Alice, make sure we have extra patrols by the lake tonight. Folks are getting nervous.
You got it, Sheriff. We'll keep an eye out.
Life in Chardon was simple, but it was real. It was a tapestry woven from the threads of hard work, kindness, and a deep sense of community. But the storm that was brewing on the horizon threatened to tear that tapestry to shreds. The disappearance of the fishermen and tourists had cast a pall over the town. The laughter of children playing in the park seemed a little less carefree. The whispers in Cray's Diner were a little more hushed. An undercurrent of unease began to flow through the streets of Chardon, a premonition of the horror that was to come. The storm arrived without warning. One moment the sky was a clear, vibrant blue, the next it was a swirling mass of charcoal gray. The wind picked up, whipping through the trees, sending leaves scattering like frightened birds. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of rain. The townsfolk watched from their windows, a sense of unease settling upon them. The storm escalated with a fury. Thunder roared, shaking their homes. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the town. Then came the rain, a torrential downpour. The river transformed into a raging torrent. The bridge groaned under the onslaught. With a sickening crunch, it gave way. Chardon was cut off, isolated from the outside world. By dawn, a heavy silence had descended upon the town. The sky was a bruised purple. Chardon was now an island, its inhabitants trapped. As the initial shock of the storm subsided, a different kind of unease began to grip Chardon. The bridge being out was one thing, an inconvenience, but manageable. What truly unsettled the townsfolk were the disappearances. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. A fisherman failing to return home from a day by the lake. A group of tourists vanishing from their campsite, their belongings left untouched.
At first, it was dismissed as nothing out of the ordinary. People went missing from time to time, only to reappear later with a tale of misadventure or a change of heart. But as the days passed and the number of missing persons grew, a chill of fear crept into the heart of Chardon.
Whispers of strange occurrences began to circulate through the town, unexplained noises in the night, shadows moving at the edge of the woods, glimpses of figures lurking in the periphery of vision, gone as quickly as they appeared. The stories, fueled by fear and uncertainty, spread like wildfire, each retelling adding a layer of dread to the already palpable tension.
Cray's Diner, usually a hubbub of chatter and laughter, became a sounding board for these anxieties. The townsfolk gathered, their faces drawn, their voices hushed as they shared their concerns and speculated about the fate of the missing. Even Cray, with his usual optimism, couldn't dispel the growing sense of foreboding that had settled over Chardon.
The disappearances were not random, they followed a pattern. Fishermen who ventured out alone on the lake, hikers who strayed from the well-worn paths in the woods, Campers who sought solitude by the water's edge, all gone, vanished without a trace. It was as if something or someone was picking them off one by one.
The lake, once a source of tranquility, now inspired fear. Fishermen ventured out in pairs, eyes scanning the water's edge, their hands never far from the hunting rifles they now carried. The stories they brought back did little to calm the growing hysteria.
Jeb Hill, a seasoned fisherman, returned visibly shaken. He spoke of an unnatural stillness, a silence so profound it was almost deafening. He described a feeling of being watched, of being hunted.
The woods, once a place of solace, now seemed menacing. The rustling of leaves and snapping of twigs took on an ominous quality. Even the bright sunshine couldn't penetrate the sense of dread. The disappearances cast a long shadow over Chardon, transforming it into a place of fear.
Friday nights in Chardon were for football. The whole town would gather at the high school, their cheers echoing across the field as the Chardon Cougars fought for victory. It was a ritual, a celebration of community spirit, a chance to forget their worries and revel in the thrill of the game. This Friday was no different. The air crackled with anticipation. The cheerleaders practiced their routines, their smiles bright under the stadium lights. The band tuned their instruments, their music a prelude to the battle ahead. On the field, Coach Davis barked orders, his voice hoarse with passion, as the team went through their warm-up drills.
The stands were packed, a sea of faces illuminated by the glow of the stadium lights. My deputies, Fred and Alice, and I patrolled the perimeter, our presence a reassuring sight. Among the crowd, Cray served hot dogs and sodas, his booming laugh competing with the roar of the crowd. Life, for a few precious hours, felt normal.
Then, without warning, the lights went out. The cheers died in their throats as darkness enveloped the field. A collective gasp rippled through the stands, followed by an unnerving silence. Then, from the darkness beyond the field, came a sound that chilled them to the bone, a low, guttural moan, hungry and relentless.
On the field, Coach Davis, his face grim, his voice surprisingly steady, urged his players to protect the cheerleaders. He grabbed a baseball bat, his grip tightening around the wood. "Coach Davis, form a line, don't let them through." The players, their youthful faces etched with fear, but their eyes hardened with a newfound resolve, formed a protective circle around the terrified cheerleaders. The football field, once a stage for athletic prowess, was now a battleground for survival. The first wave crashed against the chain-link fence that surrounded the field, the metal groaning under their weight. They clawed and clawed, their moans turning into enraged snarls, their hunger palpable. The crowd scattered, a tide of terror flooding the stands. Panic erupted, the crowd surged to their feet, a wave of human fear crashing against the stands. Screams pierced the night as the moans grew louder, closer. From the darkness they emerged, grotesque figures, their flesh rotting, their eyes glowing with an unholy light. They moved with an unsettling gait, a horrifying parody of human movement. The first undead creature to breach the fence went down with a sickening thud, a baseball bat connecting with its skull. The boy who wielded the bat, a scrawny freshman who wouldn't have looked out of place in the marching band, surprised even himself with his ferocity. Adrenaline, fear, and a primal instinct to survive coursed through the veins of the students and staff trapped on that field. Cheerleaders, their perfectly manicured nails now chipped and broken, used flagpoles and megaphones as weapons. Band members wielded trombones and tubas with surprising effectiveness.
Sheriff Johnson, Fred, and Alice, their guns drawn, fought their way through the panicked crowd, providing cover fire for those trying to escape. Sheriff Johnson, get to the school. It's our best chance.
The gymnasium doors swung open, offering a sanctuary from the nightmare unfolding outside. Teachers shepherded students inside, their faces pale with terror, but their resolve unwavering. The battle for Chardon High had begun. The sounds of chaos at the high school reached Craystar's diner, carried on the wind along with a new, terrifying sound, the moans and snarls of the undead. The diner, once a haven of warmth and comfort, felt suddenly vulnerable, its windows offering a glimpse of the horrors unfolding outside. Cray, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a steely determination, helped herd the remaining townsfolk inside. He locked the doors, the heavy bolts sliding home with a resounding clang that echoed through the diner. Fear hung heavy in the air, thick and suffocating.
What's happening, Cray? What are those things?
Cray looked at Sheriff Johnson, his face grim.
I don't know, but we're about to find out.
He looked around the diner at the frightened faces of his friends and neighbors. Sheriff Johnson, we need to stick together. We need to protect each other. We need to fight back. As he spoke, a new resolve settled over the diner. They were trapped, isolated, facing an enemy they didn't understand, but they were Chardon, and they would face this threat together. The usually cheerful atmosphere of Cray Star's diner had evaporated, replaced by a palpable tension. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sizzling bacon, once so comforting, now mingled with the metallic scent of fear. The townspeople huddled together, their faces etched with anxiety, their eyes darting nervously towards the boarded-up windows.
His diner, his sanctuary, had become a refuge from a nightmare. He moved among his neighbors, offering words of comfort, a reassuring pat on the back, a warm smile that belied the fear gnawing at his own insides.
Sheriff Johnson, his face etched with fatigue but his gaze unwavering, climbed onto a table, commanding the attention of the room.
Folks, we're in a fight for our lives. These things, they're not human. They're relentless, they're hungry, and they're coming for us.
A collective gasp rippled through the diner, followed by a tense silence. Mary Smith, her face pale, clutched a crucifix around her neck, her lips moving in silent prayer. Jeb Hill, his weathered hands trembling, gripped the handle of his hunting rifle, his knuckles white as bone. "We can't wait for help," Sheriff Johnson continued, his voice taking on a steely edge.
The bridge is out, the phones are dead, and God knows what's happening in the outside world. But we're Chardon. We're survivors. And we're damn well going to fight back.
A murmur of agreement rippled through the diner, a spark of defiance igniting in the eyes of the townspeople. Fear gave way to a steely resolve, a primal instinct to protect their own. They were outmatched, outgunned, but they were not out of hope. Not while they had each other.
We need to organize. We need to pool our resources, fortify our positions, and prepare for whatever comes next. Cray, this diner, it's the heart of our town. It's our last stand.
We'll hold them back, Sheriff. We'll protect our own.
With urgency, the townspeople gathered around the diner's largest table.
We need to establish a perimeter. The diner will be our command center.
We'll make 'em earn every inch, Sheriff.
Fred, Alice, you're with me. We'll secure the streets and set up barricades.
As night fell, the townspeople worked tirelessly, united by a common purpose.
Mothers comforted their children, whispering reassurances.
Fathers exchanged grim nods, their faces etched with responsibility.
We are Chardon. We will not go down without a fight.
The silence of the night was shattered by moans and snarls.
The first wave crashed against the makeshift barricades.
The defenders returned fire with desperate fury, their shots echoing through the night.
Inside the diner, the air was thick with gunpowder and fear.
The diner had transformed into a battleground.
Deputy Fred Stone manned a barricade with a shotgun.
Beside him, Deputy Alice Fine reloaded her pistol with practiced efficiency.
Hold the line! For Chardon, for our families!
The battle raged throughout the night, a desperate struggle for survival.
The weight of responsibility crushed me as I watched my friends fall.
As dawn pierced the darkness, the tide of the battle began to turn. The defenders, exhausted but resolute, pressed their advantage. As dawn painted the sky, an eerie silence descended upon Chardon.
The exhaustion was overwhelming. I moved among the wounded, offering comfort.
Inside the diner, the exhausted defenders collapsed, their bodies trembling with fatigue. Yet, amidst the carnage, a sense of camaraderie began to take root. The silence was broken by Mary Smith's choked sob.
It's going to be okay, sweetie. We're going to get through this.
Jeb Hill sat slumped against a wall, his gaze fixed on the floor.
I won't let their sacrifices be in vain. We have to rebuild.
We've been through hell. We've lost friends, neighbors, family, but we're still here.
His words ignited a flicker of hope in the hearts of the survivors.
We'll rebuild. We'll honor the memory of those we've lost.
They were Chardon, and they would face the coming dawn together. The sun cast long shadows over Chardon, the town now bearing the scars of battle.
It's hard to believe this is our town now.
Cray moved through the diner with a newfound stillness, his steps heavy. Yet even in his grief, there was a quiet strength, a determination to rebuild. As the sun climbed higher, a sense of purpose began to settle over the survivors.
We ain't gonna let this town fall, not on my watch.
They had faced the unimaginable, and they had endured.
We are Chardon, and we will survive.
As the day wore on, the survivors began the daunting task of rebuilding.
We survived, and we will rebuild. Chardon will rise again.
Each act was a testament to their resilience, their refusal to be defined by the horrors. They had survived, and they would rebuild, their spirit unbroken.